Am I live? I think I'm live. I might be live. Yeah, I think I'm live. And Terry, if you're watching, I'll respond to you here. Sure, I'll send you the link in a minute. So yeah, hey guys, I'm Ben. It's Sunday, November 25th, 2018. It is 8:03 p.m. on the Eastern Standard Time. Doing a community hangout. So we've got some people that are going to be dropping in over the next little while. Excuse me. And yeah, so tune in. I hope you all enjoy. Have lots of questions ready. If you're one of the regulars, like I say, I got a bunch of people jumping in, but I may still add another person or two here. If I can get my bloody computer open here. I'm trying to multitask, folks. Just bear with me. There. Hit enter, and yes, that's sent. So let's bring that back. Let's see. Who do we got in the chat here tonight? Scrolling up. We've got Lefty Mike. Good to see you, buddy. We got Matthew Stewart. Always a pleasure. Steve Mandrackie, who may be jumping in as well here. We shall see. Old Man Dan. The streaming machine. If you're not playing guitar, you're playing games, man, you play. You're a multiplayer. Love it. Love it. Love it. All for a good cause. Autism awareness. Check out his channel, folks. Who else do we have in here? We have me talking to people. No, I'm not going to shout out myself. All right, I'm going to try to say it. Chaotic One. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Welcome. We got Guitar Hack. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. EJ's Guitars. Haha. Or woohoo. Not haha. Woohoo. Left you a thumbs up. There's Steve. Hey Steve.
How's it going, dude?
Good, good, good. Let me know, folks, if we have a bit of an echo. I have headphones handy as well. I'm just doing tons of shout-outs here, good sir. We got Michael Bishop, all the way from Indy. Good to see you, man. Scott Nickerson out of Edmonton. Awesome stuff. Frank C. Dennis Briot out of New Hampshire, I do believe. Awesome. Todd Flowers out of Florida. All kinds of people. Adam EDH, good to see you, brother. Awesome. So how you doing, Steve? We were just discussing there in the chat how we both kind of missed out on Shane last night.
Yeah. You know, sometimes that happens. The thing that I sort of pride myself a little bit is that I think I have caught just about every one of Shane's hangouts. So, you know, when I looked at it last night and I saw it said he was only going to be on for about an hour. And I'm like, you know, as I was texting you that, you know, the wife and I were just sort of transitioning the house from Thanksgiving to Christmas and sort of, you know, getting ready to switch gears for the seasons there. And, you know, by the time I turned around, you know, it gets dark so early now by us as it does by you, I guess, too, right?
Oh, yeah.
That, you know, it seems like you're working for hours at night. And then the next thing you know, it's, you know, hours to pass by. And I looked at my my email and I was like, oh, my God, he's got one going. And I was like, oh, okay. When I tried to get on, it was already full.
Yeah, email, like an hour's notice at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was about 4:30 yesterday afternoon. I nodded off for a quick little nap, and then you wake up and it's pitch dark out. So I'm thinking, oh man, you know, I'm waking up at 2 a.m. I'm screwed for my sleep pattern. Right. I look at the clock and it's 10 after 6 or 5 after 6 or something. Like, oh, really? Wow.
Probably the same by you as here. We're getting dark by 4:30.
Yeah.
5 o'clock is pretty much dark, you know, 0 dark 30 kind of thing. And then it seems like you've been in the dark for hours and hours. You know, it probably feels like it's 10, 11 o'clock at night and you turn around and it's like 10 after 5.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a bunch of guys that were live last night, you know, hopping from one stream to another. And again, thinking it's 2 or 3 in the morning, but then you realize, well, everybody was only doing an hour or so for the most part. I think Steve from Boston was the only one that went like a good 2 hours.
Did you hop on him last night?
Yeah, I jumped into his chat and I noticed he started late, which is a rarity for him, but I know he was waiting for Shane to finish. You could tell.
Okay. Yeah. He and Shane are sort of hooked together. So they're good guys.
Exactly. It's all good there. So yeah. And then Steve went until what, about 9 o'clock. And then I think Robert Baker was on by 10. And then he out. So it's like, sure.
You know, it was a busy day.
Yeah.
And you don't really realize after a while, how many guys have their own channels. And, if everybody wanted to just like, hey, let me do a hangout tonight, and then you suddenly discover that you're on at the same time with 5 other guys. So
yeah, Guitar Hack was commenting on that because he went live at about 7 p.m. last night. And so, Shane was still live, Steve's starting up, and he's like, yeah, who's going to watch me type thing. And I was joking with him. We were texting each other today. And I said, I was doing one of these type of, I don't know if it was a subscriber hangout, but it was a Sunday night hangout. And I was running a few minutes late. And just in that few minutes, I got notifications that the Tone King was live, Shane was live, and Johnny Bean was live. I'm like, so I'm going to be talking to 2 people at best, I'm thinking.
Yeah, you sit there with everybody what to do.
Yeah. And we got a bunch more people jumping in here. Citizen Kane and Jamal's here as well.
Jamal, shout out to Jamal. Hey, Jamal.
Yes. Always fun hanging with Jamal. Paul Lou, good to see him. Says, I watched him. Good. And Guitar Hack says, yeah, I had no idea everyone was on last night. You just got to do your thing, and people are either going to watch live or on replay. That's the way I see it. Like, as long as I have one person in the chat, I'm good, because then you can still do that interactive deal. Whereas, you don't feel like you're just talking to a camera. But then, and people, like say, I get the same amount of views, roughly week to week on each video that I know everybody's just either, if there's less people live, they're going to catch it on replay. Or if I have a lot of people watching live, I won't get as many replays. And that's fine.
Which way works better for you as far as the channel goes, live or replay?
That's a good question. I think it's more people discover the channel live. I seem to get more viewers live, like new viewers.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is because when you're live, you're going to show up on a YouTube homepage, for average Joe guitar player opens it and they're like, hey, this guy talks about guitars and he happens to be live. So as a result, they'll watch and then subscribe, and then they may not always catch you live, and then they'll start watching on replay even and stuff like that.
I know I became aware of your channel when we both wound up on Shane's hangout one night.
Right.
So maybe 3 or 4 times ago, I think was.
Right.
And I asked you about your channel, and you said, "Oh yeah, Ben Coombs." I said, I whistled you up and I subscribed myself. So, whenever you do stuff, I get a little notice on it. I get a chance to sit and watch. Yeah, so if there's that one guy out in the States watching, it's me.
There we go. Yes, ring that bell, folks, so you get notified. And then, in theory, you'll get notified. Unless it's a premiere. Then they notify you as soon as it ends.
Yeah. That's always helpful. By the way, it's over. Oh, good.
Yeah. It happened. I forget what it was, but I get a notification on my phone. I was at work, and I had a bit of downtime, and it was hey, this is a premiere. I'm like, what is this new thing? And I go on, I'm like, oh, wow, it's a video, but there's a chat. And then I'm like, but I can't talk in the chat. And this is premiered 2 minutes ago. I was like, Yes, Michael Bishop says, if I remember right, after Guitar Hack show was done, I went into Steve's. There we go. Hey, Absolute Mayhem saying hi to everybody at once so he doesn't get flagged for typing too much. Nice. Efficient you are, Absolute Mayhem.
It's easier to talk than it is to try and type without making typos.
Yeah, much. Do a shout out from this way than, trying to say hi to everybody in the chat.
Yeah. And as I'm getting older, my fingers are getting a little arthritic, and it gets even harder to type. So,
yeah, I got to keep that for guitar playing. Forget about this extra typing.
Yeah, exactly. And in the cold weather too, it's a little less cold here than it is by you, but we're not real far apart for temperature. But for example, we had Thanksgiving. We had Thanksgiving on Thursday, and on Thursday night, Friday morning, it was 8 degrees Fahrenheit. When I got up in the morning. So yeah, and that's we get that cold easily here, but
sure.
Not usually quite that early in the year.
Right. Yeah, it was a cold snap because I remember Guitar Hack and I were talking about it was the coldest day on record, I believe, on Thursday.
Yeah.
For the Toronto area, for instance.
Yeah, that would have been Friday.
Yeah. But yet this weekend, all of our snow melted.
You know, funny thing, the same thing happened here. Today actually it got up to 51 degrees. It rained like God's revenge last night. And most of my snow, which was, I guess we got about roughly half a foot the other day. Most of it's gone except for where I had to, pile it up outside my driveway or whatever.
Oh,
just a few piles here and there.
The old remnants of snowbanks.
Yeah. The ghosts of snowstorms past.
Dennis Brio asks, looking at a Les Paul, it's in Canada. Will I have to pay duties or any other tax? If it's new, you will probably have to pay provincial sales tax on it because that's the way we work. There may be a slight duty of, say, $20, but if it's used, you shouldn't have to pay anything other than sometimes, they'll put a fee on the approximate declared value. My understanding. Like, I've ordered enough stuff out of the US. I think I've only ever had to pay like a duty once on something.
Is the provincial sales tax like the VAT that the guys in Europe have, the value-added tax?
Sort of. We have both provincial and federal taxes. So we have a 5% sales tax federally, and then most provinces have a provincial tax, although Scott Nickerson in Alberta, you lucky SOB, he has no provincial sales tax, whereas we have 8% provincial tax. So everything you're paying 13% tax on for pretty much everything other than like groceries and stuff like that, right?
Same thing here. Pretty much we have state taxes that we pay, and that varies from state to state. Jersey's got like between 7 and 8, something like that. I even forget now. But there are a couple of states where there are no sales tax whatsoever. So when you walk in, if it says $7.95 US, you pay $7.95. Right. I remember Shane talking about how it sort of threw him for a loop when he came into the States someplace. And I can't recall what he said he bought, but he pulled it off the shelf and it said, I don't know, $8 US. And when he got over there, they said, $9.50 or something like that. And he's like, what? He said, oh, wait, it's sales tax. And he's like, oh, I didn't know that was coming. So yeah.
Yeah. It's like Americans always give me weird looks when I'll pay for something and then with tax, it's this. And I was like, oh, really? That's it? They're like, what do you mean? That's it? Yeah, we're getting screwed up. I'm like, no. 13%, folks. 13%.
Ouch, that hurts. That's tough. And it's hard enough to pay 8%.
Whereabouts you were from? Rough area.
Northwest New Jersey.
There you go.
In the corner of New Jersey, New York State, Pennsylvania, all sort of come together roughly within probably, 50, 75 miles of each other.
Right.
So my weather here is more towards the Pocono Mountains from Pennsylvania, because I'm only about 25 miles from the Pennsylvania border. So we start, getting further and further inland. I'm not close to New York City, thank God. I don't like cities. But the weather forecasts that we say that come broadcast out of New York, out of New York City, are significantly different. They're talking about this time of year getting like a little bit of rain, and I get like half a foot of snow. So
right, yeah.
I'm probably closer to your weather than I am to New York City's weather.
Exactly. Yeah. Like people think, like north to south, there's not a lot of difference. But the biggest thing too is all it takes is a bit of elevation and you're right on par with anything several hundred miles north.
Well, here is about, I think we're about 900, 950 above sea level. So, it's not like it is out in Denver where you've got a mile high thing going, but it's certainly not sea level either. So
right.
I can get different weather from a rain snow line, probably no more than about 30 miles from here. It could be raining. My wife works about 45 miles away from here, and she can be down, and that's close over to the city. She works in Jersey City. It can be raining here, and it's snowing here. So
Yep. Oh, for sure.
It's like the Poconos, and we're more like southern Canada than anything else.
Yep. Oh, exactly. Like. And it's weird, yeah. And all it takes is even like not even mountains, but just the hill range, even.
Yeah.
Like because we're so close to Lake Ontario. I remember I used to carpool in high school with a buddy of mine that literally lived less than a 10-minute drive north of me, and he'd pick me up, and there's snow on his truck, and I'm like, "Why is there snow on your truck?" And I'm like, "You literally live maybe 5 miles north of me, maybe." And he's like, "Murray Hills, it always pushes the snow north, and I just don't get it."
Oh, well, I'm just not looking forward to going into the winter system. I'm a hot weather guy, so
Yeah. So am I.
When I get lucky, my wife and I will take a week in the summertime and go to Mexico, which people laugh at me. Say, Steve, you wait for July and you go to Mexico? I said, yeah. The funny thing is that it can get pretty chilly here in the wintertime, but in the summertime, 100-degree day is not unheard of.
Right. Exactly.
There's not a lot of them, but when I'm here in July, and if we manage to get down to Mexico for like, just a week around Riviera Maya or something or other, there's no acclimation at all. I mean, I get off the plane. It's a little more humid there than here, but that's basically it.
Right.
Isn't that special?
Here, I was just waiting to hear back from a couple of people I haven't seen yet. That's cool. That's fine. But yeah, if you guys have any questions for Steve or myself, other than where Steve lives. Oh, here we go. What do we got here? True story. When I was a teen on my BMX, two dudes with like a 4Runner had skis on their truck, asked me where the closest ski hills are. I was like, it's August, dude. Yeah. Donnie Lovett. Hey, Ben, watching live tonight. Hey, Big Steve. Cool. Welcome, Donnie Lovett. It's all kinds of people. We got 34 people watching. Awesome. Awesome. So have you got any recent acquisitions over the last while that you can't put down, or is there something you're lusting over that you feel you can't live without that you're hoping shows up under the Christmas tree?
Oh my God. If I had the money to spend, Guitar Center would be mine, Not that long ago, I mentioned on Shane's that I picked up a Fender Telecaster, and I mentioned it last night. A butterscotch blonde mix, which looks so much like the guitar that Keith Richards plays,
right,
from the Stones. As a matter of fact, I named my guitars, and that guitar got named Keith, not Keith. Keith.
I have one right here named Keith.
K-E-E-F. Yes.
Yep.
Like the Brits
I put that up when my dad gave me that guitar. I immediately put a strip of masking tape on my case because I label all my cases. And I put Keith, and he just looked at me and went, "Really?
Yeah,
really?" I was like, "Yeah, really."
I've got an American standard Telecaster that I named Bubba.
Bubba, nice.
Just for all the chicken picking music that they get used for and the country stuff. You're a Tele guy too, aren't you?
Oh, very much. Yes, I'm up to 4. If I count my signature guitar, which is obviously a Tele-based guitar, so.
I saw you showing that off. That's a beauty, dude.
Well, thank you.
That's a beauty.
It's available through renofin.ca, folks. And or if you don't want to buy a whole custom guitar, you can buy just the pickups too.
Little out of focus from here. What are the pickups on it?
Oh, it's here. I'll grab it.
Oh, hey, Terry.
Actually, he's a banjo player.
Is he really? You know what? I thought so, Terry, but I was afraid to ask him. I didn't want to make him mad,
Banjo and ukulele master.
So there you go, Steve.
Okay, I've got P90s in it.
Yeah, basically your old school stock P90 in the neck, and then an overwound, more modern, as they call it, P90 in the bridge.
Right.
So about a 7K output on the neck and a little over 9 in the bridge.
And I love the color too, dude. It looks really pretty, really nice.
Yeah, I think he called it double burst.
There's a string through the back like a Tele is?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I got to tell you, it's one of the things I like about Fenders. You get the string through the backs.
Yeah.
I have I have a Fender bass. It's a PJ. It was a Fender factory special made for Guitar Center. It's a mix, but it's got precision bass and jazz bass pickups in it. It's actually pretty cool, but the only thing that I wish it had was a string through the body.
I'll just reply here. No worries. Somebody is busy putting their son to bed, so he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm running late." I'm like, "It's all good. Don't worry about it." Yes, and Absolute Mayhem was wondering who Steve is.
Who Steve is?
Give us the 30-second synopsis, Steve.
Okay.
Like we were saying, we met over on Shane's channel from In the Blues.
And it's also where I met Terry.
Yep.
Over in Shane's. I'm a retired American fella living in New Jersey, in the States. I played in bands when I was a teenager, before life got a hold of me and took me in different directions. I thought there was a time when I was actually going to have a chance at making a living at playing, but fatherhood, the military, life in healthcare just made that come to a screeching halt. So when I got to the point where I retired, I said to myself, well, what is it that I want to do in retirement? And I always remember from my healthcare days when I was taking care of older patients, they would say, listen, when you get to retire, make sure that you have a hobby. Because if you don't, being retired can be like boring as hell. So I have a couple of hobbies. And I did take on the attitude was that when I got a chance to retire, I wanted to spend time being a kid again. It's one of the things that you can do with your time, whatever floated your boat when you were younger. And I remember saying to myself, I had such good time playing, and I played in bands, and we played battles of the bands and dances and stuff like that. It was no big venue or anything. I don't want to overrepresent anything, but I played in a couple of very good bands. One of which there was a representative from the then Mercury Records in the crowd, and he walked up to me and put a business card in my hand and said, if you guys are together in 6 months, I want to talk to you. Of course, they understood that teenage bands are here today and gone tomorrow, which is why he said, I want to talk to you in 6 months. And it faded. But I can still see that business card sitting in my hand, and going, whoa. So, yeah, these days I am spending more time being a kid again. And with a little more time on my hands, I'm trying to pick up some of my playing from, where it was, oh my God, I'm dating myself, 50 plus years ago. And yeah, that's who I am.
There we go.
And also I'm spending time, very enjoyable time with folks like Ben and Terry and Shane, and just, watching the YouTube musical community, and several other people that I watch too. Several guys are Canadians. Brian's not Brian. Oh, I forget his name. His name escapes me right now.
Brian Cote?
No. Oh, hell. It'll come to me when I'm not thinking about it. That stuff always is.
Joining us here, we got Fellfish, Blues Boy Kentucky, and Brian Fingerless Guitar, among some others. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up, folks. People are rotating in and out. I'm seeing the same number of viewers at any given time, but it's just rotating. JJK, House of Harleys, there was one. We had a question from Blues Boy Kentucky. Any tips on learning and putting together chord progressions? That's a good question. For me personally, I don't know if I ever really learned how to put together chord progressions, for the simple reason that I learned, a ton of cover songs, or tried to, long before I ever tried making my own music. So I knew a lot of the blues runs that, let's say, obviously all the blues players use, but also bands like AC/DC and, bar rock used, like the 1-4-5, that Citizen Kane's mentioning, stuff like that. So it was kind of already inherent to me, or just simply play one chord and then switch to a chord and go, well, does that sound okay? Or, well, that just sounds weird, or something like, I guess, for lack of a better term, I think that's kind of hunt and peck, sort of like learning to type. How about you, Terry?
What's that? I just was trying to do a few things there.
Learning how to come up with chord progressions. Man, I can't even say that, let alone learn it.
You're having the same trouble talking that I was having typing.
Well, Brian Cote, though.
Yeah, I was just trying to find a link for Steve's channel. I've seen a few of his videos, and people were asking.
Oh, perfect. I was going to say, if you got the chat open still, Steve, say something in there, because some people were asking what your channel was.
Yeah, see, that was one of the things, being a self-taught player, I really never thought about until like within the last couple of years. And I think I basically learned from, other people's videos and other people's understandings. Other than that, pretty much everything is just kind of, I get to it or try to understand it when I do.
You know, if you had to speculate on the answer to this question, do you think that more people play guitar, as we do, let's just say, a modern type of songs? Do you think that they have learned, self-taught, learned from other people that they play with or have had access to, or actually people who actually go study music? Because I got to tell you, the study of music is insanely boring.
Yeah. My dad used to have a joke about that, especially like from his generation, was whenever he would show up, putting a band together or a jam, if anyone said, I know how to read music, he usually started packing up his case because they were the most annoying and anal people in the world. He said, he's like, no, just sit back. And they're like, well, when do we change chords? You'll feel it.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. It's like I get asked, I'll get up on stage from time to time with other bands, which is almost unheard of in a lot of these days, especially on the local level, because a lot of people still play their own stuff and you don't know each other's material, let alone playing quote unquote standards. So if I know a song, I'll say, hey, I'll get up. Yeah, well, sure. I'll get up and do a song with you. And they're like, did you know how to play that song? I said, no. Well, then how did you play? I said, well, one, you've probably heard the song 100 or 1,000 times on the radio. And it's basic, like most rock is based on the blues. So, I'm going to play this chord for a certain amount of time. And chances are I'm going to switch to the 4 pattern, so I'm going to go from E to A, and chances are the chorus is going to involve a rundown from B to A to E, type thing, or some or worst case, you just look at the other guy's left hand to see where they're coming from. And if you miss a chord, palm mute and just keep doing the rhythm.
I know for myself, I started with a songbook of Beatles songs. And I was a huge Beatle fan at the time. And I knew the songs by heart. But I didn't know how to play them. So I think I had gotten an inexpensive acoustic guitar in the Beatles songbook, and it gave very simple chords, C's and E's and D's and G's and A's. Everything was just major, and down the low end of the fret. So it had the little dots where you're supposed to put your fingers, and just from knowing how the song went, and you could just sort of follow along with the music as they printed it. It wasn't that hard to actually start playing songs that I knew and already liked.
Right. Because, again, I think because inherently, when you can feel the changes coming as much as knowing. Just feel.
And I went even from that point simply because, as I say, I was a big Beatles fan back in the day, and McCartney was my favorite Beatle. Everybody had a favorite Beatle. Who's your favorite Beatle? And sometimes it would actually lead
Ringo.
who would learn to lead to fistfights. But I started listening to specifically what he was doing, and then decided that the tone was cool. And I wind up with a very inexpensive bass guitar somewhere. It was a K bass, as a matter of fact. Was it a hollow body or a semi-hollow body? I forget. But I started playing it and just, imitating McCartney as best I could. And then folks came to me and said, hey, Steve, we hear you play bass. It seemed like guitarists were like a dime a dozen. But if you could play bass, or even if you just had a bass and could just sort of, just follow along in the most simplest of patterns, I had no trouble finding people to play with back then. And there were even times people would ask me to come by and jam, and I didn't realize it, but it turned out to be an audition. It was like, hey, would you like to play with us at the end of the day? I said, yeah, sure. So I wound up playing with 2 or 3 bands at the same time, teenage bands.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, sort of how it came to be guitar and bass for me. And one of the things that I used to like about playing bass, we were playing at this one Battle of the Bands at a fairly good size gymnasium, not quite an auditorium, but it was pretty big. And it was a Battle of the Bands, and our team, my band won, and people coming up to us and saying, "Hey, you know, your band's really cool, man." And the one guy comes up to me and says, "Steve," he said, "I can hear the other guys playing, but I can feel you playing." And I guess that's one of the attractions about playing bass is that it's very visceral, more so than playing six string. You know, I mean, you know, when you hit the right notes on your bass, everything vibrates. You know, the stage vibrates. You know, you can see the blind shaking. You know, with that you know, low G on the neck. And I guess that's one of the things that was always an attraction for me. The visceral part of it that you don't quite get playing six string.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember even like when we do a lot of band practices, it's all headphone based, you know, virtual amps, electric kit, stuff like that. But generally, especially we haven't gigged in a while, we usually seek out a place to do as Rich likes to call it, a practice at pants shaking volume.
No,
which go figure, you know, we're one of those bands. The only thing that goes to the PA is your voice anyways. So all amps are at, you know, we run everything at stage volume for monitoring as well as to get across whatever venue we're playing. So I think the last time I did a decibel check, we were 113 decibels on stage. Jeez. And then I wonder why my ears ring for a day and a half. You know?
Really? And you know, it's funny because when I talk about, you know, when I did this when I was younger, these were the days where there were no PA systems. So you pushed your own sound, you know, and this one band that was pretty good. We practiced like a religion, you know. You could ask me, "What are you doing Saturday and Sunday 6 months from now?" And I'd be saying bad practice. But I would chuckle about that later on because in later years I realized that we'd practice on Saturday and Sunday, and I could hear again by Wednesday.
Yeah. Yep. And we got a question for Terry. We're gonna hit that in just a moment here because. I'm going to preface that, but you guys keep seeing me on my phone. I don't normally name drop, but I was just talking with Brian Vollmer. For those who don't know, he's the lead singer of the band Helix, kind of an iconic Canadian metal band. For those who don't know, their drummer Fritz, I think I mentioned it last week, Terry, on Canucks with Guitars. A week and a half ago now, Fritz was doing some roof work, fell off the roof. Oh. Very bad fall. Fractured skull, vertebrae, I believe a vertebrae, ribs. Like, we thought they put him in induced coma for a few days, brought him out. He seemed to be either like, holy crap, yo, this is awesome. But it looks like he's a little more beat up than we first thought. There is a benefit gig happening at Eastside Bar and Grill in London, Ontario. Helix and the Killer Dwarves are playing in another band, and I keep forgetting the third band. They are sold out as of when I gave them the shout out on Canucks with Guitars. Sold out as of Friday, I believe, which is awesome. I believe there's a GoFundMe as well. I'm not positive on that, but Brian was just touching base with that info, and he's going to be out of touch for the next month. He's in Florida, so yeah, just want to give a heads up on that. But speaking of iconic Canadian bands, who Terry saw last night, who my buddies in Ryan Silence are opening for 1 week from last night, I believe it is. Or it's either Friday or Saturday night. They're playing down here in Belleville. Anvil, who I had the pleasure of opening for, I want to say 3 years ago, Terry? You seem to know more about this stuff than me. I think I opened for them 3 years ago. And they were awesome 3 years ago. So other than replacing their bass players, no, same bass player. He had just joined when I opened for them. How were they last night, buddy?
Well, I don't know. Let me give a premise to the night.
Oh, I sense a story coming.
Arrived to the scene.
Hey, Bruce.
Full of leather, denim, and the smell of Old English.
Sure. Yeah.
There was a big mix of actual people. I would say the majority were older, more like probably 50-ish. I would say. But then again, though, given the age of Anvil themselves, then it's not a surprise in how old of a band that is. So there was a mix of pretty much everything from preppy to dirty biker in the way of the attendees of the concert. The first band that was up was a local band, which here's the interesting thing about it. The one guitarist for the band actually was a guy I did my 3-for-3 guitar deal with over Kijiji.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was saying to my bud, he was sitting there beside me, and I said to him, I said, no friggin' way. I said, that can't be. My friend's like looking at me, and he's like, well, what? And I said, see the guitarist up there with that LTD EC1000 guitar on the right side of the stage or the left side of the stage or whatever? And he's like, yeah. I said, I actually think I was actually talking to him on Kijiji, and I said, I think I actually did a guitar trade with him. I said, his name's Chris, because he dressed the same, he looked the same, and at the time he had a big fascination with the ESP EC1000s. That was the only reason why he was interested in doing the trade with me to get my Agile AL, was to do a comparison.
Okay.
So anyways, the first band, they weren't too bad. The second band was, I can't remember offhand, but I think you said you know them, Ben, or know their name or whatever.
So. Yeah, it's not, let's be honest, the Ontario heavy metal scene, it's not a big scene. I think I've played with half the bands, you know?
Yeah, the lead singer, he had long hair. He had a kind of scruffily, garbly voice at times. And then at times he actually sung out of it, which was kind of interesting and cool. Weird thing about that band was their lead guitarist guy basically was like a shaved head Angus Young, who basically sounded like he took guitar lessons from Kurt Hammett's How to Use a Wah video. He literally rode the wah. Every single lead song, it was wah, wah, wah. It's like, okay, wah sounds good in definitely certain amounts of doses, but when it's almost practically every single song and it sounds like it's on all the time, it's like, yeah. Band was overall good. Both the two opening bands, they got about, I think it was between a 6 to 8 song set each, so about an hour. And then Anvil came on, and by that time it was like already 11. So there's me and my friend, we're both kind of like starting to get drowsy. So Anvil themselves, I would say it's been a long time since I've heard them, and a long time since I've heard anything by them, period. They played, we stayed for about 3 or 4 songs. I can say this, from a perspective of them as individual players, absolutely solid. Like solid. Yeah. Super solid. Everything was very clean and clear. You could actually hear everything. Even the vocals, everything was well balanced. It was like, pro. The only thing that my friend...
They definitely still have it as a band, I'd say.
Yeah, like everyone in that band, drummer, my friend especially spoke up about the drummer. He thought the drummer was kick-ass, and I agree.
Rob Ryan.
He was really kick-ass. The only kind of gripe we had was, what's his name? The guitarist who does the vocals?
Lips.
Yeah, he could pass on that duty.
Yeah, but he's always sang. He's been the singer since day one, right? That's Lips. Let's just be glad he's not performing in bondage gear anymore.
Oh God.
That must be a sight for sore eyes.
But let's just say he still does a guitar solo most nights involving a female pleasuring device that may or may not be battery operated. Eddie Van Halen has his drill. Lips has something else. And you in that loud, heavy tone, Terry, and he uses dual Fender Twins, eh?
Is that what that was? I was trying to look at the gear. I do have the footage on my phone. I took some footage, and their gear looked like it was like micro state, like guitar heads or bass heads or something. You couldn't see them.
As far as I know, yeah, they're both Fender twins when I was working with them, but he changed out the grills to like heavy.
They look like metal, and they don't even. And the face on it doesn't even look like a. It doesn't even look like a Fender.
He may have swapped them out since then.
Yeah,
but we have joining us here the man himself. He's gone black and white, so he doesn't look like he's from the depths of hell anymore. Which, sure, wherever he's tuning in from, it's all good.
Saint Lucifer. Oh, how are you? I can't remember how to do that anymore. I have to admit, man, I do have a reputation of being possessed. I didn't start it. It happened in the religious community before I came into the guitar community, but I think it continued on, just out of love or something, I guess.
I love your sense. I was telling you earlier when we were texting, I love your sense of humor. Like witty, like when you did the, by the way, I apologize again for canceling on Bruce a couple of weeks ago when I got sick, but I saw your promo vid and I was crying. I was laughing so hard.
Promo vid.
The guy likes guitars. I figure we'll hit go live and let him talk for an hour. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so good.
I don't know. I just kind of gone, but anyhow, I like your interest in guitars. That's cool. That's rare.
We got Metal Stage in the chat, so I assume he's going to be jumping in at some point too. It seems to be the MO, because I saw you, Bruce, in the chat briefly before you jumped on. Oh, there he is. Oh, okay. This kid won't go to sleep, so he's made it as far as the chat.
I hate when that
But all right.
So I'll give a quick summary here before we move on. So overall, the show was excellent for the three bands that you get to see, including the legendary Anvil.
Yep.
And on top of that, for 20 Canadian.
Yep.
It was well worth the money.
Yeah. I fully agree. And those guys, they're out there. Anyone who hasn't seen the Anvil documentary, watch it, because they literally went full circle if anyone has. And but they don't care. They're still out there. They get, they'll go into a town, they'll get a couple of bands, like guys like me, to open for them. We do the ticket sales because that's the life of opening for bands like that. But then again, I get to put on my resume, I did a gig with Anvil, right? For whatever that's worth for your local promoters. And honestly, it's an easy ticket to sell. Basically, we had to buy them at X amount of dollars, sell them at a profit. So that's how we got paid. And the promoters loved us because I ran out of tickets twice. And even for the fact that, like, sure, we sold a few to people that'd be like, hey, Terry, you would contact me and you go, look, I'll buy a ticket. I'm not planning on going, but I was doing this event. And then even half the time they donate the tickets back to be resold and stuff like that. So they're like, screw the ticket sale, with a pay to play or whatever you want to call it, right?
Pay it forward.
Yeah, and so they pay it forward because it's a pay to play situation, especially in Kingston, Ontario. Yeah, Hunter, you know all about it, buddy. Welcome back. We haven't seen you in a while. I met him through the local music scene, and we did a few gigs together.
I thought you were talking about Aggie Fish.
That's what I thought so too. I was going to ask.
Late teens, early 20s, or mid 40s and up. Because everyone seemed, like Steve, you were saying, you take that break for life or what have you.
Yeah.
And
life gets
that's what it was. Like, we had some teenagers open for us, then we were the middle-aged guys, and then Anvil headlined. Because I got to be, quote-unquote, direct support. Ooh.
It comes full circle.
Yeah. Just means we got to play an extra 15 minutes.
the guy you mentioned, Lips, he did offer an interesting story last night, and it was in between the two last songs that we stayed for. Was talking about his experience with Lemmy and how they toured as the pre-act for Motorhead way back in the day, and about how Lemmy and them were so impressed they actually asked them to do a UK tour, and I think it was 84 or 86. So Lips was saying he was all excited to get over to the UK and actually get to spend some time with Lemmy. So he's like thinking, oh, cool, I'm going to hang with Lemmy. And he proceeds to tell me about Lemmy sitting there at a table, big bottle of orange juice, big bottle of vodka, pouring it into a great big tall glass. And he hands it to him and he goes, have a drink. And he's actually doing Lemmy's voice and accent to a T while telling this and telling the Lemmy side of it. And he said he drank it, and he was like, he said that was the only time he ever truly felt like he's ever blacked out because of something. And he's like, oh, and Lemmy's like, what the hell is wrong with you, or whatever, like using some curse words or whatever, like that Lemmy was saying. And he's like, dude, he goes, I can't even see where the table is. And apparently Lemmy actually is like, oh, I got a cure for that. So Lemmy reaches in his pocket, takes a knife, opens up a bag, scoops some powder, and he goes, here, sniff. And he's like, he said, he didn't want to. And then he said, well, when you're with Lemmy, do what Lemmy does. And he said he sniffed it. So then all he remembers is apparently talking. And then he said, next thing you know, the manager comes banging on the door, opens the door and says, hey, these guys, it's time to do the show. And Lips is like, can't be. We've only just been sitting here for like a few hours drinking. And the manager guy, he looks at me, he goes, you do realize it's been 22 hours has passed. And he's like, oh, crap. So they get up and they go out and do the next show.
You know, guys, yep. I remembered those names I was talking about before. The couple of guys who, Canadian fellas who I watched, Daryl Braun.
Yeah.
And of course, Dave's World of Fun.
Oh yeah.
I don't know Dave's last name.
Dave Riom.
Yeah, Riom.
Riom. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I
don't mind saying it because he posts under his full name in his Facebook group. So
yeah.
So I was just wondering, you said your name's Hunter, is that correct?
Hunter?
What?
No, there's
Hunter. Hunter is his first name, actually, but he separated it for his screen name. But his first name is Hunter.
Is he also Canadian?
No. Yes. Yeah. He lives about 20 minutes east of me.
Are you allowed to like show whiskey? Like on here?
Oh, yes. We encourage it.
I found this on the bottom shelf. It was on sale.
Canadian
Hunter. That stuff.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
You know?
That's funny.
I'm not even familiar with that.
Really? I don't know. It was like big bottle for like $12 or something, you know?
You know what'll get you for $12 in Canada?
What?
Maybe this if it's on sale.
Wow. Yeah, I just I got a
6-pack of beer is $13.
Yeah, or a 6-pack of beer.
You haven't poured it in my coffee, and probably not a good idea. I'm trying to cut back on the anxiety, you know, drinking the coffee, you know. So I wanted to stay out. I wanted to make sure I didn't get into any deep water or any kind of like difficult situations. But I did want to ask Terry, do you think there's a difference in tone between, say, like an aluminum nut and a brass nut? Oh, no, never mind. You don't have to answer that. I just messing with you, man.
Oh, it's like, well, you know what difference between a dark bean and a light bean?
Yes.
Yeah, I think dark beans, you know, it's like when you run them through your grinder, you have to put a little bit of water and something in there, or breathe in it, go, because it's so light, because all the humidity's burning out of it, you know. You know what I mean? Where like a lighter roast, you know, it doesn't stay there in the container like that when you grind it, you know?
Right.
That's really, but dark does taste good, you know? I don't know.
Well, you know, actually, it's funny. I will say one thing, Bruce. I was watching one of Henning Pauly's videos the other day, and he was showing off these guitars from a German guitar show, high-end builder. And I think they were retailing for like 2,500 euro. And their Tele style, which of course has the 3 double saddles, they actually had brass saddles for the middle strings, but they did an aluminum bridge and saddle for, and he said that allows a little more twang to come through, where they've actually put 2 different materials into one bridge essentially.
Right. Well, that's a weird deal. I had made some bridges for violin out of aluminum. I was playing around with different piezo pickups, and actually aluminum worked pretty good, you know?
Sure.
Pretty weird. You know, aluminum, PV used aluminum nuts actually for a while. Maybe a long while, you know, years ago. I remember that.
It's pretty soft though. It gets beat up pretty easy. I would imagine if you had it on a nut, the strings would just wear it down.
They do wear, it does wear fast. I made some aluminum nuts, and I noticed that too. The brass holds up longer. You know, it's heavier, you know, but you can work harden brass. I don't know that
you can.
Aluminum work hardens too well.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it patinas more than anything else. Patinas and gets brittle.
Yeah. I like aluminum for certain things, but I think it does good in the air, you know. It doesn't do good in water. You know,
no, not in water, especially salt water.
Yeah, really, exactly. That's kind of the deal, you know. Brass on ships, it might be heavy, but it does hold up.
Yep.
Exactly. And my sister commented, my sister was over here this evening, and for those who've been on me about getting my sister a guitar, because, you know, she watches a lot of these channels and stuff. So I brought her back here tonight before dinner, and I placed, I don't know, half a dozen guitars in her hand, so she get the feel of different necks and stuff. And it was interesting. The guitar that she picked that felt the most comfortable, ironically enough, is my dad's old Telecaster.
Oh, wow.
And she put it in her hand, she went, wow, this feels amazing. And I was like, well, yeah, this one's been played, you know, way more than any other guitar. And she could feel the comfort level. And she's like, I think I'm a Tele girl. I'm like, you're a Coombs. You're definitely a Coombs.
But isn't that part of the charm of an older guitar? It's literally been not played out. It's been played in.
Yeah.
Especially necks. You know, you get how many times somebody's hands going up and down the neck and just, you know, exercise it.
Like I couldn't tell you how many gigs my dad put on that guitar, like hundreds, you know. Plus you figure all the practices and all the jam sessions. And
what do you find about Teles that, other than, you know, with your dad's, I guess, that attracts you to Telecasters?
The sound. They got that twang.
The sound.
They just seem to cut through a mix, like at least for the way I play too. Whether it be a single coil or even a humbucker, you know, because I have a dual humbucker Tele as well. You know, I got actives, I got P90s. I just like the way the necks on them feel, the smaller necks, especially the smaller necks. I don't find them really bulky, you know, as some people do.
No, it's comfortable guitar.
I like the one with the body cuts in them, the later ones. They're a little more comfortable to hold than the original slabs.
Yeah, they've added the belly cut, and I didn't do a belly cut on mine, but there is a mild arm relief in it. Well, actually, it's a fair amount of arm relief. And that was just because I was sick of burning up my arm on that edge. I said, just smooth it down. And he went a little further, and I went, well, that's different. I like it. You know, not as extreme as, say, on a Strat, but, and it's different. Something else to make it my own design, right?
Yeah, the bridge saddles, you know, is interesting. You were talking about that. Some people complain about it, but Well, there are some people that could argue that it does work, depending on your intonation and how you tune and what chords work and which don't and what part of the neck and such. But I do like the compensated saddles. I think they work really well. I think I saw Guitar Girl was putting them on her guitar, and I've always liked those.
Yep. Todd Flower says, I love tellies, but you know that, Ben. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things I do on a lot of mine is I swap out the old style bridge and put on a modern 6-saddle bridge just for the intonation reason. Plus, I found, especially like on my 71, the height adjustment screws stuck out like 2-3 times further at the top than they did at the bottom. So you can palm mute with it just shredding the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bent steel ones do that. The other ones, what do they call? I forget what they call the other ones that you can get for them. They usually put them on the more modern ones. Those don't hurt your hand at all. I got some Graph Tech ones to put on Bubba, and that was part of what was driving me at it. Because when you get your hand back towards the tail there, if those screws are sticking up at all, you literally look at them and say, "Ow."
Yeah, I think if you have enough back pitch, like on your neck angle, and of course, you're going to have your bridge saddles higher, so you're not going to feel that. Or, you could always grind them off, if they're a little bit obviously on the bottom side, so you still have screws to turn,
I don't know when you put the words grinder and my guitar in the same sentence, I get a little anxious.
Yeah, but seriously, I mean, you could use a file, but you'll be at it for a while, depending on how much they heat treated the steel,
Yeah,
but
they can make it awfully hard. They can.
Yeah, I mean, you just pull the screw, measure the screws, pull them out, and grind them, and you can thread them up through the other, or whatever.
Yeah, up to the bottom.
Yeah, or I mean, if you take a nut of the same thread and put that on first. And after you grind it, then you turn it off that direction. That'll clean up the threads too, somewhat.
Sure.
Just a thought, because I don't like that either, digging in my hand. But
it hurts. It's actually distracting enough where when you're trying to play, it doesn't matter if you're playing, in your living room or you're playing in front of people. When you're playing and it's getting your attention more than where am I going next with what fret, what finger, whatever.
But if you're playing in front of people and there's blood running down the guitar, though, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that starts whipping the crowd into a frenzy.
Now, it's funny you mentioned about the vintage saddles and the modern saddles. I will say one thing about those posts that you're talking about. On the vintage ones, I actually noticed on the top of the saddle screws, they are more rougher than on the more modern blocked ones. The more modern ones seem to have a more refined tip to them. So that could be a factor as well, too.
Could be,
yeah. And I went with the modern saddles instead of the vintage ones, like, say, your vintage Strat style, because there's just so much more mass in each of them, too.
Yeah.
And I can't stand those vintage Strat style ones with just the stamped metal, because, again, the same thing. I find half the time the height adjustments are sticking so far out.
But the thing is, though, it's just me, but I hate, even though I know they work, but I hate pot metal, where the old stamped steel, I end up doing the same thing. I end up fitting them to where they're comfortable. But I'd rather do that myself than use pot metal if I can avoid it. I mean, I guess pot metal is okay. It's just, it gets sweaty if you got some acidity or salt in your skin and stuff. Next thing you know, your freaking saddles are rotting away. The chrome's peeling off, and you know what I mean?
Pot level doesn't have a lot of longevity attached to it also. It tends to fracture and break after a while. It's not something you put on something you wanted to last for a long time.
Talking about salt water, imagine pot metal and salt water. That doesn't work.
Yeah. No kidding. And we got craft beer pourers in the house. Hey, buddy. Good to see you. Tuning in from Massachusetts. He's got a great channel. If you're into beer, check him out.
Speaking of pot metal, I've got a shower that on a bathtub thing. You have that little lever you pull up, and
oh yeah,
turn the shower on, and geez, really, I hate that freaking crap. You know, it's like anything made out of that stuff, you can almost guarantee with time will break, you know,
Yeah.
or it'll corrode enough that parts don't move anymore or work right. And I suppose if I were to tear it apart, which if I was going to tear it apart, I'd want to replace it with brass. I don't care if it's old brass, you know, but maybe coat it with epoxy or something. You can use super glue. It's a little brittle, but once that stuff starts rotting, it's just what a mess.
Pot metal doesn't have good shear strength either. It'll tear from side to side. You know, tensile strength, it's okay. It doesn't pull apart, but it will break side to side. So it has bad shear strength.
But that's the weird thing with a guitar, I guess, is, you know, how much strength you need. Like say a tailpiece on like a Les Paul or something. You know, I've heard people complain and say, oh, you know, it's pot metal. It's this. Question is, does it work right? Does it sound okay? I'm not sure it's an issue in an area like that.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just a purist concept too. You know, somebody doesn't like the idea of having pot metal on their guitar.
Right.
And even if it doesn't necessarily, you know, have a negative effect on how the whole thing works or sounds or whatever, you know, sometimes it's, you know, it's just like, you know, it sticks in my head. Well, I don't want it.
I mean, I just tell them, you know, it was a derivative of German silver. They call it Zamac. You know, it's a special, you know, a special type of metal from Germany. You know, I don't know. Then it's maybe not so bad, but well.
And I thought we weren't going to get into this in-depth stuff, eh, Bruce?
No. But Zamac doesn't sound as bad as pot metal.
Pot metal.
That's right.
I cast zinc like you melted down a matchbox and made a guitar bridge, you know?
Yeah.
Waste of a perfectly good matchbox.
Yeah, never bothered me on a matchbox. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
But oh well.
Sorry if I'm missing questions in the chat, folks. I'm having a great old time here. So ask again if we missed them. I've been seeing a few people commenting on using, like ZipFix has been mentioning a few different stuff he uses. It's like brass on some stuff. Nickel is good.
Yeah. It's funny. I see people talking about gold plating versus chrome nickel and this and that. And I don't know. You
know, I'll be honest. Most people that complain about gold hardware will say it's more for aesthetics. It's not. It's never tone related. It's always just I hate the look of it. But personally, I like it because the cheap stuff goes to crap in no time, and it just looks so relict.
Yeah, I want rolled gold. You know, if they're not going to make pure gold, at least do what they call rolled gold. You know, it's really thick and heavy, and like 1/8 of an inch of epoxy coating over top. I don't know.
Hey, Tanaka.
Maybe the relic looks kind of cool though. You know, I don't know. I you know, a lot of times they'll nickel plate before they throw the gold on, so you can just kind of buff the dang gold off. You know.
How do you guys feel about buying a brand new guitar that is and you paid extra to have it relicked? Is that something you'd be interested in?
No, but I did make a video about it. It's pretty bad. I don't know. Did you Ben, did you notice that? Did you see the video I did about the my Stratocaster? It's pretty bad.
I think there was reference. Yes. Because I remember one that you had modded up and stuff like that, but yet nobody could really tell. Like you were basically saying nobody can tell what you're playing anyways. I remember that.
Well, I was saying that it was all stock and had the original pickups, and there's like a spiritual content to it and all that stuff, you know, and how, you know, you should wear it naturally. And the reality is, you can ask Terry. I think he might have even seen the early videos when I took it out and set it on his metal chair. And
that's why I'm laughing, because that's what I remember is that
sprayed hose on it, freaking lighter fluid, and wiped it down and stuff, you know. And then I beat it with hammers and stuff, and I just beat the hell out of the thing. And well, I mean, originally it was a Highway 1, and I noticed it like leaning it against amps and here and there. I was getting dings. I sanded and like with 600 grit, you know, I sanded it out a little bit and then used some rubbing and polishing compound and just, you know, take the orange peel out and stuff. And then it got dinged up and banged up. And eventually I'm like, you know, I think I'll just distress it. I mean, people pay thousands of dollars for this. So what the heck, you know? So that's how it ended up that way. And it made for great videos and a lot of excited people, you know.
Finishes won't wear anyways. You know, they don't check because it's not like a lacquer that's constantly gassing and curing, and it's going to fall off in 5 years. The one thing I do like actually was like Wildwood was doing a bunch of stuff. Fender, unfortunately, it seems to be only out of the custom shop. They're thin skin, where they shoot it in nitro, but it's like basically relic ready. So if you gig with it for 6 months, you relic it yourself, and it'll look all cool because they do a thin finish on it. But you pay extra for less of a finish on your guitar.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't know. I think just play the dang guitar, But the thing I love about his videos the most are listening to that guy play. He's a killer player, isn't he?
Yes, he is. I was fortunate enough. I caught a set of his at Gearfest this year, and then I would say an hour or two after his set, he was doing a deal at the Fishman booth. So I went up and I got to talk to him for about 5 minutes. And then he actually did a quick video with me.
Wow. What, I forget, what's his name? He's all wound up and he's
Greg Koch.
Yeah. Man, that guy just, oh my gosh, man.
He's a wild man, but he plays like God's Revenge he plays. Yeah.
And you know what? I will tell you, it's really hard, that Gearfest, because they got the pavilion, like NAMM. It's really hard to resist buying a set of Greg Koch Fishman pickups when Greg Koch himself is giving you the hard sell on said pickups. And he's like, well, here, check it out. Check out this tone. And you're like, well, yeah, but you're you.
Yeah, I remember hearing him play through some amp simulations, software-based things, and you just go like, wow, sounds great. I think he plays Squire and it sounds great,
Oh, he's one of those people that can pick up, a rubber band stretched across 2 garbage cans, and it'll make it sound good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I went live from Gearfest while he was playing, but I made a point of standing like 20, 30 feet in front of him. So, you're in the selfie mode, and I'm holding up the camera, and I got him, of course, positioned perfectly over my shoulder. And I just waited, and then someone's like, wait, is that Greg Koch back there? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, whatever. Kind of played it off. And I'm like, meanwhile, believe me, I was fanboy with him 10 minutes earlier. And then when he agreed to do the video, it's just 30 seconds of me trying to out Greg, essentially. And it was just the two of us back and forth. And I think I was grinning for 3 hours after that.
When you said Greg, what were you trying to do? I can't help but ask.
Can you even do that?
Just basically one up him. Like he's like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm doing great. How are you doing? I dig it. You dig it? I dig it. And it's just too crazy going back and forth for half a minute.
He digs it too.
Yeah, he's hilarious. But oh my gosh. Yeah, just not a whole lot of players I hear that the one guy, Greg's Guitars, I think both of those guys really blow my mind, Yeah.
And when you
good people too.
Go back to talking about the relic stuff. I think I heard Shane put it. I had a hard time trying to verbalize how I sort of felt on it, but I heard Shane say, "Now, would you buy a brand new car and pay $10,000 extra for it because somebody put some dings in the fender and a big scrape along the door?" And that seems to be how it strikes me as buying a new guitar relic. You want it relic, just play it for a while. It'll get there.
They do rat
compare
rods.
it to if you bought a brand new rat rod, like one of those rat rod hot rods. That's kind of what you want.
Well, I can imagine I wonder, like a brand new bobber motorcycle, that's already all hammered to death, like a brand new Harley is just beat to death, and I don't know, maybe.
I bet you there is a market for it. Put this. Let's be honest. There would have been a market for it 20 years ago when all the lawyers and dentists were getting into Harleys.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. It's there's something about a $100,000 motorcycle. You just kind of go like, well, that doesn't remind me of the old biker thing, when I've seen guys out with hammers and stuff trying to make their chopper and bending frames and stuff around trees and welding stuff up,
I was never into choppers. I was into sport bikes back then.
Uh-oh.
I had a 900 Ninja that was a
Nothing wrong with
rocket. If you wanted to kill yourself, this is the thing to do it with.
I had a 900.
That used to race motorcycles, so I'm well aware, Steve.
I had a 900 Super Sport, and to me, that was fast enough. And I had an 1100 Goldwing that I bought a supercharger from CC Products and put on it.
Wow.
Hilarious. And I had low K&N Superbike bars on it. And so you leaned out across it. It was all stripped down. And
put some nitrous on it?
No, I had a 4-in-1 Jardine header on it. But I remember it would really pull throttle-induced wheelies in third gear. It was hilarious, you know. A big boat, you know. I mean, it was funny, you know.
Yeah. It's a nice ride, though. It's a real nice cruiser.
It was a nice ride.
Comfortable for, you know, the trouble with my Sportback, I couldn't ride for more than about an hour to two when I have to stop and just stretch and, you know.
Yeah.
That little tuck position's not that comfortable. Keeps you from getting beat up in the windstream, that's for sure.
Well, I'll shut up on this, but I got really obsessed with old BMWs. You know, I like the old twins and a nice, comfortable
horizontal twos.
Bike. Yeah, just neat bike. And the Goldwing, you know, it's faster. I mean, in a sense, but it was a big boat. I mean, it compared to a Moto Guzzi or a Beamer, you know, it's just not the same animal. You know,
different altogether, different vibe.
And then what you're talking about now, you're in a whole new world. I mean, you got insane brakes, handling, and insane power. You got it all. You know?
The brakes on that thing were so good that if you were not careful, you could easily do a stoppie.
Oh yeah, you get in a lot of trouble real fast.
Not on purpose either, I mean.
No. Yeah, but you know, you do.
Then again, my uncle was of the generation. He was crazy enough. Let me think. He was racing a KZ 1000 when 1000s were still considered super bikes.
Yeah.
So, he was the Canadian champ in either 82 or 83.
Whoa.
And he raced all over North America and Europe. And
that's really stuff, man.
And mine was a 900 Ninja.
Yeah, but by the time you get into the Ninja and stuff, I mean, things are just such a different world. I mean, you're thinking of like the old KZs, like after the 900 and the Mad Max bikes, you know, and yeah, that was cool. I mean, in its day, that was like insane, you know. I had a 750 triple two-stroke.
Oh, they were crazy.
That was fast, man.
Oh yeah,
Kawasaki was really fast. I had the Water Buffalo Suzuki, but the Kawasaki's they freaking flew, man.
Oh yeah,
and
that's all my uncle raced. He was the factory rider for Canada for Kawasaki.
And those triples would make a boatload of horsepower all of a sudden.
Oh yeah.
Ron Flowers says my buddy in college had a 59 Beamer, slowest bike I ever rode. Yeah, they weren't particularly fast, but when you if you were to take like say a 1000, you know, like late 70s, early 80s BMW and put a 1050 kit in it, cam it, put some big Delorto carbs on it. I mean, you know, after you know you got a bike and you might do like 130, something like that. I mean, it's not a total dog. It's not gonna keep up with modern Jap bikes, but it's fun.
Dude, my Ninja would do 150, and it was not finished breathing, and it wasn't out of gas yet either.
No, that's real
thing
fast.
used to red line at like 11,000, and when you get up to that speed, I was just cracking 10 grand on the tack, and I was like, okay, this is plenty fast enough for me, and I just rolled it back.
Yeah, that stuff scared me.
It's really scary. I did it once, never again.
I used to race this guy that had an FJ 1200 Yamaha, and I would keep up with him up to about 140 or so, and then, you know, he'd pull off a bit. And yeah, I don't know, man. When I rode stuff like that, or like the Honda Interceptor, the 750 Interceptor, that was a bike I really liked. But I found that there's no flex hardly that noticeably. It just handled so well and everything worked so well. Like I like stuff that was a little more sloppy and I don't know, bias ply tire stuff that would start to drift into turns and stuff. Where
I hear you.
Only if I were sport touring, if I could do that, you know, I think then I would want that great handling. But to go out and play on the back roads, I sort of liked like an old Yamaha SR 500 or something like that, where when you're pushing it, you felt like you were doing 150, and you look at the speedometer and you're doing 80. You know, this is a little better.
Yeah.
But dude, the Ninja was designed to go fast. I can remember. I also used to commute about 40 miles each way a day, and when the weather was nice, I would ride the Ninja. And I'm driving down the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey, heading down south, and it's a beautiful summer day, and I don't have my jacket on, just got my riding gloves and my boots, and I'm on my way to work. Beautiful sunrise coming up and everything else, and I'm just sort of enjoying the ride and the weather and the sun and the wind and everything. And I'm looking around and wondering why the hell is everybody going so slow? You know, it's like, you know, I'm looking around to see, you know, maybe, you know, has somebody seen a cop on the side and they're pretending that they're not speeding, you know? And I look down and I said, they're not going slow. I'm doing 90. But the bike gave absolutely no feedback to you that says you're pushing me too hard.
No. Yes, that
It
was,
just,
what
it
would
just,
you thought
I was
of?
happy to go whatever speed I was happy to ride it at.
What do you thought of something like you're saying now it wasn't always real comfortable, but say something somewhere in between, like Kawasaki Concourse. You ever look at those? Or
I looked at them a lot. I never had a chance to own one. I did think that if I was looking for a sport tourer, that would probably be at the top of the list. Maybe something BMW-ish, something like that. You know, because those are the sport touring kings. You know, the Hondas, the Goldwings are nice too, but like you say, you know, they're boats. You know, they're aircraft carriers.
Yeah, the Goldwing was fun. I mean, it was. It wasn't so much fun to ride stock. Yeah. It was fun to ride like that, or I had a Hannigan fairing on it for a while. Those big bubble shaped Canadian fairings, if you remember. I think they're made in Canada. And that was pretty radical looking. You know, it's just crazy looking. Like, it's just not what you expected to see on a gold. And like Goldwing riders, they would never wave to you. Like, they would look at me like, what are you riding? You know, they didn't even know. They had their teddy bear strapped on the back and crap, and umpteen billion lights and chrome everywhere. You know, like mine was all stripped down in black, and I was leaning out across it. And they just look at you like they didn't have it yet. Guys, like like if I went to a BMW motorcycle, like breakfast meeting or something, guys there would come up and look at it. Sport bike riders would look at it. Those guys would look at it, but and sometimes a Harley rider would wave just because it was so big, you know. But the Goldwing riders would not even recognize you were riding a Goldwing. Yeah.
The only guys that would never wave to me were guys on Harleys.
Yeah.
They just, it was just beneath them to wave at somebody. You know,
riding down back to talk only because we've dropped about 10 viewers.
I'll shut up on.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, we're gonna shut up on this.
Where I had to let motorcycles.
But it's all good because I enjoy bikes too, so it's all good. Michael Collins says I have a blue Fender Player Telecaster that is great. That's awesome. I dig the Player series.
No more alcohol for me and no more motorcycles. Sorry.
And we've got Shane from In the Blues hanging out. Good to see you, Shane.
Hey, Shane.
Oh, hey, Shane.
Last night. An epic hangout last week. Wow. That's possibly the best live stream I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot.
How do you make a guitar sound like a motorcycle?
I'm sure there's a pedal for that.
Yeah.
Definitely not a Miku.
Distortion. That'll work. That is fun.
Mayhem's still on. They're still on motorcycle talk in the chat. So if you have any guitar questions, feel free to ask.
I'm sorry we dragged this off in that direction. It was
it's my fault.
Not exactly on top,
guys.
Oh, it's all right.
Well, if you
like I say, I grew up around motorcycles, so
it's been my
there's photos.
It actually does kind of go in hand with guitars. A lot of musicians like motorcycles, and
that's right.
So not like
Dennis that out. So. Have a good one, Dennis. And RJ replaced him in the chat apparently. So welcome, RJ.
Hey, RJ.
Yes, hello to all the old and new people that have joined.
Exactly. We got 39 people still tuned in. That's awesome.
More thumbs up on the video would be nice, folks. Please and thank you.
I wouldn't even know what they are. I'm not even looking at it. Thumbs up, whatever. Thumbs down, whatever. It's all content. It's all interaction.
I
It's
think
all of you in an interaction.
thumbs down even count. I think it's still considered positive.
Yep, it's the exact same. It's considered an interaction, so it's the exact same. So they're watching, they're interacting with the video, so it all helps. And great Vanzini. I didn't see
out of way.
And cameras. Yes, we haven't had any camera talk tonight. I'm using one. Thank you again, the Guitar Pit. If you're watching on replay, because I haven't seen you in the chat, thanks again, buddy. Using my Logitech something or other. Sure
Logitech C920, just like I use, or else it's C922.
I don't know. Does it say on top? Nope.
Probably say somewhere. Mine's a Logitech also.
Yeah.
Hey, could I, Ben, you mind if I say just a little something about guitar real quick?
I think you could. I think we have time for it.
Okay, now do a stoppie for us.
Yeah, I was like, okay, are you going to play Kickstart My Heart or are you going to play Bad Motor Scooter?
I'm done. That's all I really had to say,
I was waiting for Radar Love, to tell you the truth.
Okay, and Gussie says, hey, Ben, I finally found the right interface. What did you get, Gussie? Let me know. We were discussing on Johnny Bean's show on Friday. He's looking for an interface to be able to use an iPad or an iPhone or something like that. He's going with the iRig Duo Pro. Good idea. And it was funny because the guys on the Johnny show, they weren't too sure. A few people mentioned some stuff in the chat. And I said, well, I'll contact some people and let you know what I find out. Hey, Sean Zimmerman just showed up. Hey, all, I'm here. Just feel like crap. I don't like to hear that, but
feel better.
We know how you're doing, Sean, and I'm glad you joined us. So yeah, I said I'd contact some people, and then sure enough, it was like an hour later, Tone King goes live, and I said, here, ask your question, because in honesty, I was just going to message the Tone King and ask him because I know he's up on a lot of that stuff. So
he's a gearhead.
Yeah, exactly.
And that what was the preamp you just mentioned? A Duo, the iRig. That works,
iRig Duo Pro.
That works pretty nice. I was impressed with that. I have one of those. I don't use it that much, but I do like it though.
On the topic of gear, guys, here's a question for you. Tuners.
I like talking gear.
I've used some tuners, the ones that just put on the end of your guitar. I don't think they're worth a damn, to tell you the truth. They drift real easy. They say, snarks, and I've got a Fender one, and it seems, unless the battery is like hyper fresh in it, it tends to wander. I don't think it's really quite that accurate. You guys got any feeling for either brands or without, trying to sound like we're shilling for anybody, or particular styles?
I've tried the Snark, I've tried the Fender, and I tried one other one. I can't think of off the top of my head. Not the TC Electronics one. I know that. But I don't mind the Snark. Like you say, it could be off in calibration or something, but as long as you're dialing to it, like say for yourself, like even doing intonation or something like that, as long as the meter is reading in the middle for both, it's going to get pretty darn close. Yeah. And let's be honest, if I'm intonating a Telecaster anyways, I'm not getting it perfect.
Probably not.
But I generally, I'll use a clip-on tuner if I'm plugging direct into my amp for some reason. But like if I don't have my pedal board at home, for instance, I'll use a clip-on tuner. But right now I have my pedal board at home, so I have a tuner pedal on my board that I use.
Yeah, how about a stomp box tuner?
Well, here only because I have worked with them. I use an Outlaw Effects. They're a Canadian company because their pedal tuner, which is a micro pedal size one, so it's smaller.
Yeah,
it retails for like $50-$60 Canadian. And then they have one also that's a power supply and tuner all in one, which is roughly your MXR size, and it can run like 5 or 6 pedals off of it. and they retail for about $100 Canadian.
It's pretty flexible.
Do you remember you gave that link then to some things for the iPhone, and I kind of like the ClearTune or ClearTune, I think it's called.
Oh yeah.
That seemed to work pretty. At least for me, it seemed to work pretty good when I tried it, and it's been a while. But
it's funny. After I posted those links for the Tone King, that whatever that product, geez, I can't even remember the name of it, but that all-in-one unit he was using, the clip-on speaker, that is the ad that comes up on every damn video now on YouTube. It's for that device. And I'm like, I tried to do a good thing for the Tone King, and now I'm subjected to this ad like 20 times a day.
So we have you to thank for that one, huh, Ben?
I got this.
Yeah, that's my fault.
I got this cork tuner and I can't get it to work right. It's really very frustrating.
That is strange.
You know, the Petersons look very
I
interesting.
turn this knob, and I get this, and I turn this dial. And
Oh, dude, it's a bomb. Look out.
Yeah.
Can you say that on here?
Kablam.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I think I just
did. You know,
I said it with a smile.
This thing it
Sounds
throws.
more like a metronome than a tuner.
Yeah, I mean that's the frustrating thing about it. You know.
They used to do that, put metronomes in a lot of tuners.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. It is just a metronome.
Casio tuner around here like that. And that thing was expensive. That thing was like $200 or something in the 80s. And you have to flip the switch for each string. The needle, it's a needle based, not digital.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to pitch. It has 430, 440, 450. So you actually tune to 440 on each string.
But you know, I have an old Korg tuner though that it's like that. You have to put it on each string, but be honest though, it really does work well. I like for doing intonation without using a Peterson or something like that. It's really not too bad.
Yeah.
Peterson's got
Well,
a
it's like,
small
yeah,
one,
some
like
people
a
will
little
say, you
desktop
need
one. It's
tuner
round.
to fully do intonation, and I'll be using a snark in a video or something like that, and they're like, "Oh, that's a terrible tuner to use," and I say, "Well, guess what? My intonation's closer than it was before I did it." So,
and this makes for a rotten metronome. But no, this is actually that's that old the old Korg, you know, that you just have to set it for each. Yeah, there is nothing.
yep, that looks like the Casio one. Yep.
It works good.
Yeah, and I remember my dad saying when he bought that, because he used to tune everybody's instrument in the band quite often, because those tuners were, the calibration wasn't the best on them. So if everybody had a tuner in a band, the rule was everybody used the same tuner to be in tune with each other.
That would make sense.
There's a trim pot and calibrated exactly, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now everybody has an inline tuner on their pedal board, right? Or even my bass player, he doesn't have any pedal board, but he still has a tuner he just has on the floor. Yes, exactly, Todd. Close enough for rock and roll.
Yeah, like I said, for quick tuning, use the snark. The Viper, you actually have an onboard tuner that if you actually have the Sandpara controller, it actually shows on the display a little thing. And when I do want to get more detailed, I got this as a throw-in on a used guitar deal.
I have the exact same one.
Seiko. The Seiko. But I mean, this thing is like amazingly accurate. So like when I do a setup for the intonation, I use this all the time.
Nice.
Do you find you guys find that like if you're just sitting around playing, like do you use a tuner or do you find that you just tune a guitar by ear, or what do you notice?
Unless generally I'll just tune the strings to each other if I'm playing by myself, because it doesn't matter if I'm off a bit. I don't really, I'm just noodling around. I'm having fun, but definitely I use a tuner like at band practice or something, like just so we're all to pitch.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I'd be honest, it's something I do that's probably not good. I've played in bands and stuff and not tuned. I just
got a lot of nasty looks.
No, I just tune quick to everybody and say, okay, good enough. If I were
All
recording
all
something,
Ben-
I would tune. You know, but like an open mic night or something like that, I don't know. I wouldn't really care too much. You know, it's probably not good. You know.
Yeah, the only time I tune is when it sounds like the guitar is out of tune or something doesn't sound in tune with one of the strings.
Yeah,
Then I'll go and I'll double check. But otherwise, it's like, yeah.
and the
Yeah,
nice
if
thing
I have one
about
string
drinking, like,
off, I'll just tune it back in with the others, you know, wherever they happen to be.
I'm the same. If the guitar's in tune to itself, you know, I'm doing like Ben says. I'm just noodling in my basement, so you know, it's that's good.
We got a question from Buddy Holly. If each of you could build a brand new pedal board with 4 pedals, what would you pick?
Whoa.
I would say, given no budget, I want a Klon,
Yeah.
an original electric mistress, a CE1, and let's just go for something modern. Whatever TC Electronics delay is that has both, you know, the tone prints and both analog and digital in it. I'll go with that. How about you, Steve?
I'm not exactly a snob on my pedals, and again, you know, I don't gig, so you know, this is basically just jokingly I say my one-man band in my family room. But I have a tube screamer, which you know I think covers a lot of ground, and I it's my impression that they're really popular. I have a couple others. I've got a oh, the name's getting away from me right now. I'll get back to you on that in just a second.
All right. How about you, Terry, since Bruce is mixing a drink?
He actually added a second stipulation to the question saying only restriction is it can't be a pedal you have tried.
Oh.
Well, then I stick with my same pedal board because I've never had the opportunity to play with any of those pedals. And I didn't even do a lead, so I guess I have to ride up school and run my volume at 8 on my guitar and then just turn up the volume on the guitar for my lead boost.
Yeah, that's he actually made a excellent question in regards to that, because I mean, there's some people out there that have tried a hell of a lot of pedals and owned a hell of a lot of pedals. So I mean, it would be hard for someone
Terry,
like that.
These are the ones that aren't.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, you know, there's a lot of people that have.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, for someone like that to actually pick ones that haven't played.
Yeah, that yeah, you're right. That's pretty hard because I've tried 300 pedals. You know,
yeah.
400. No,
that's a lot of pedals, man.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, for you to come up with 4
2 years ago, Bruce, I was buying a pedal every 2 weeks for about 6-8 months straight.
Oh my gosh.
I pretty much stick with Boss pedals.
Brought out their Nano series, and they retail for usually around $100 or less Canadian. And I get a deal at the music store, so I said I was collecting pedals. I was accused of hoarding pedals.
A pedal addiction. So with that said, I haven't actually owned a whole lot of pedals, but I can actually say pedals that I haven't tried, but I do know that I wouldn't mind trying. I have to pick 4. Well, the Vox A47A wah. I would like to try a Octavio, probably a Nano Big Muff, and probably an Electric Mistress.
Nice.
I generally stick with Bosses, but I would like to try. Speaking with Terry there, the Vox Wah, that would be interesting. The Boss pedals are, you know, they're built like tanks. They generally last forever. They've got very decent sound, you know, and you can argue that you like one a little bit better than the other, or you can throw all the brand names around. But you know what? It's hard to go wrong with them. You might find some you like better, but you'll find ones that are a lot worse.
Gosh, I was thinking, There for a couple of years, I think I didn't even use any pedals at all. I'm still kind of like that, though. I think, you know, now and then. I think that thing where I was trying to play loud, I was using that 1 watt, using Kettner Cream Machine, which I guess you could almost call that a pedal, but it is the amp, you know. And I don't know. Pedals are weird to me. I don't know what to think. Like, I like them. Almost couldn't.
Yeah, that's what I got. Well, see, that's the funny part is like I have a huge pedal board, but like, and if I go to jam, I don't take any pedals. I like just plug me into something with a little bit of gain, and I'll dial in my tone.
Isn't that
and
weird?
I'll just play from there. You know,
Strange.
and it all depends, and it depends on what you're playing. Like the only reason I carry such a big pedal board is I have like 4 different overdrives on it just to cover a variety of sounds because I'm covering 4 or 5 decades of music.
Well, right.
That, I only use once or twice a night.
And I think that's really the key was if you're just sitting around playing or recording or whatever, and you have a few amplifiers and maybe a couple boosts and EQ, this, that, and whatever, you can pretty much do almost anything you want. But if you're playing in a live band and you are doing a cover band, then I think, oh, I know at that point, that's where pedals really come into play, you know?
You know, there is another interesting factor in this picking four pedals thing is also forgetting about the fact the pedal-sized amps.
Yeah.
So that is another factor too, because I mean, you can like the Trainer Dark Horse, I think it is 2-channel 25 watt amp in a pedal format.
Yeah, or is it a BEOD 50 pedal, which is 2 channels of a BE essentially?
Yeah.
I watched a review on that. I watched Henning's video on that today, which, my God, if you're going to watch a funnier video, the fact that you got Dave Friedman sitting on the couch in Henning's studio yelling at him constantly, "You're doing it wrong! You're doing it wrong!" and Henning ignoring him.
He's a character.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny, though, when we were talking about pedals, so, you know, and I listened to some of the new amps and stuff. Man, it gets hard, you know. I'm still kind of a snob when it comes to amps. Maybe I'll always be. I don't know, but yeah, I do hear guys playing through things, and I hear it, and I go, "Wow, you know, that sounds pretty darn good," you know. And I see that it's some type of new modeling amp or solid state or whatever, you know, and it's like, yeah, it's weird, you know.
Yeah. The only reason I stopped using solid state live was when I started playing in a band with a guy with a tube amp, and you couldn't hear me anymore because his amp threw and cut through the mix, and mine just didn't.
Yeah, but if you have a loud enough solid state amp, like say, like if you were to take a jazz course and have enough, you know, pedals and front you liked, you know, I mean, you'd think it would work, you know. I mean, I don't know it.
Or a Randall.
Well, I was running, well, it was the 212 version of my half stack, so it was 100 watts.
Wow.
But yeah, it was weird. Like on stage, I was twice as loud, but if you walked 20 feet in front of the stage, all you could hear was the other guy. Like it just didn't throw.
You think it has
like
something to do with what cabinet were you using? I mean, what were you using for a cabinet?
It was an open back 212 combo.
And what was the other guy using for a cab?
He was running at that time a Fender DeVille.
Because wow, that's weird. Because you know something, you know, an open back, you know, it's great, and I like the sound of open backs, particularly for clean like kind of stuff. But I do know a closed back, you know, it'll definitely project, you know, really.
See, I was waiting for this comment in the chat. His Shane just said, "I did 200 gigs with PV Bandits. That as loud as any valve amp."
yeah, I know. I know, and that's the funny thing, you know. But I don't know. I don't know why I'm obsessed with tube amps. I don't get it, you know. I wish I had the money for a Dumble or a Dumble clone.
Yeah, really.
Hey, believe me, I wish I wasn't infatuated with tube amps because solid state amps are a hell of a lot cheaper
and lighter.
Well,
exactly.
yeah. And some people really dig, you know, pushing the output stage really, really hard. And that's a weird thing to me, in that Dumbles, it doesn't really seem a lot of the players who use them are really killing the output stage. It's almost like they're relying more on the preamp to get their drive. And I mean, whether it's Larry Carlton or Robin Ford or whatever, you listen to those kind of guys. I really like my brain. The guitarist that played on Jackson Brown, David Lindley, I guess, did the lap steel work, and he was playing through a Dumble, and that's when I got kind of like, wow, man, what a sound. I mean, it's like, how do you get that? And the only thing I've had that came close to that sound on a budget kind of is Mesa Boogie Maverick, you know, and it just kind of comes close, sort of, you know, it
interesting. And I think I finally figured out this person's screen name, Chaotic One.
Yeah.
I'm staring at that for almost 2 hours. Chaotic One says, if I won't sell my Focus, can you find me an 84 Striker? You don't want a Striker. They were very low-end Kramers. Personally, I would say the Focus is your mid-range. I would look at that. You can pick them up pretty cheap. Mine, I think they go for around $350 to $450 US, pretty much all day. And it's not bad for a 30-plus-year-old guitar. So
I was noticing saying that a lot of people say that the Dumble's overrated, and it probably is. But, you know, when I hear the sound that some of these guys get, you know, for instance, I wouldn't argue with a guy, let's say using a Dumble clone, though. Either way, whether he's using his Dumble or a clone, I wouldn't argue with a guy like Larry Carlton, or Robin Ford, or Vince Gill, or whoever, any of those guys, telling them that what they're using is overrated. You know, I mean, it might sound nuts, but I mean, I think those guys, I think there's something there.
I don't think they're overrated. I think they're overpriced, but not overrated.
I would agree with that 100%. You know,
overrated, just overpriced.
Yeah, I think that, and it's obviously, I mean, if you're going for like a death metal sound, it's not it. You know, I mean, it's not where they shine. You know,
exactly. Yeah, it's like a Fender Twin. You know, you're playing metal, unless you're using it as a pedal platform. You're not using a Fender Twin. Like,
right.
My first amp was a silver-faced Fender Vibralux that had no gain, like no preamp adjustment, only a master volume. So you could crank as loud as, you know, your ears were hurting before you'd ever even hear a hint of breakup. It was the cleanest amp I'd ever heard.
A lot of headroom.
But that's what my dad played with, right? He played country music, and he needed to be at stage volume, crystal clear. Now, as the young 14-year-old trying to learn AC/DC tunes, I thought the amp sucked and was a piece of junk. But it shows you how little you know when you're starting out, right?
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way, you know, with stuff I had. Like, I remember I had an Ampeg V4, and I'd be like, well, yeah, this thing, you know, you had to turn it on 10 before it would start distorting. And but you know, after a while, you know, you start plugging your big muffs in it and everything else, and all of a sudden, yes, oh, okay, it's good enough, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, it's funny, you know.
Shane says it's all in the hands. Save your money. There you go.
He's right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. I'm weird with that. You know?
I would say hands are a big portion for the fact that it seems like whatever guitar I play on, you know, it sounds like me.
Well, yeah, sure, and you know that. I don't know, man. Like I came up with this idea a while back. Like a lot of people were busting on the Dan Electro. What's that cheeseball little Honeytone amp, right? And I was thinking, like, if you took a Honeytone, right, and say you were playing in I don't know, some kind of weird like Devo band or something, or some, I don't know, just some kind of weird thing where you could introduce some weird cheap fuzz, kind of like when the Beatles used the Yellow Submarine or something, and they're talking through that squawky little, whether they EQ'd it or actually used a cheap mic, I don't know, but it sounds like a telephone kind of quality, you know? Yeah. Well, I think in the right setting, the Honeytone amp could actually be useful. You could mic it up and play in front of 10,000 people, and it could still be useful.
Oh, sure. Well, look at like someone like Jack
A
White.
wall of 20 honeytones.
but, you know, that's the funny thing, though. You could use one honeytone and put a mic on it and run it through 10,000 watts, whatever, you know.
Exactly.
No, true enough.
I think it would be loud, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And granted,
I was going to ask you, actually, Bruce, you have a lap steel, do you not? I was watching a slide video today.
yeah, I got a couple sitting around, you know. I like them, you know.
I love those things. Like that is a guilty pleasure of mine. Lap steel, let alone when you start talking about pedal steel.
This one cracks me up because
off.
I unfortunately I got this and it looked like new when I got it, and it's kind of beat up because I'm always leaving it sitting around so I can pick it up and play it, you know, when I feel like it. But it's an old Rickenbacker, and it's funny because the spelling on it is Rickenbacher. You know, before they changed they changed the spelling to it, you know, because botcher I guess wasn't real what they're into, but it was made in '39, and yeah, it's got got the dog wound up. Somebody's at the door. Nice. Hey, no,
At the door.
Dogs.
somebody's at the door, but yeah, it's metal. Hey, no, that's me. That's me, girl. It's okay. So anyhow, but
That was the knock it off
thing, you know. And what's weird to me is to think that pickup drives and screams like that, made in '39. It's like, it's hilarious to me, you know.
Yep.
It's just weird to think something's that old, big soap bar looking thing, you know, and big funky magnet on it, you know, horseshoe magnets, and
Yep.
I don't know, it rocks.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny, as much as technology you know, keeps moving forward, which is good because the technology is able to mimic the old stuff. I always say it's funny, you know, I'm in 2018, but I'm still using amps designed in the 40s and playing guitars designed in the 50s.
Yeah, I have an old National amp, you know, and an old Wahoo that, an old Tweed amp, and you know, and I like those things, you know, and I mean, I guess my Music Man or Hughes and Kettner is newer, but I don't know, I still like those old amps, you know.
Oh yeah.
You know, they may be old stuff and you might be using them, you know, in modern times, but you know, when you got something that works, it's timeless.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. You know, just because, you know, it came out in the 40s doesn't mean that in 2018 it's not any good anymore.
Actually, I do have the original amp that came with that lap steel, and it's a metal cased, probably like a 3-watt amp or something, big tubes in it. And it was made in 38 or 39, somewhere in that era. And that amp is whacked out. I mean, there's no ground or anything on it, just 2 prongs and a metal case. It's like, you probably shouldn't touch it while it's plugged in, especially standing in water, you know, but sweating.
You could probably start up Frankenstein with it, right?
Yeah. It, you know, actually it doesn't sound too bad, you know, but I do think by the 50s, though, I think amps really got a lot better, you know, in my opinion. At 40s, some, but in the 50s, it just seemed like there was a lot.
Well, I always say amps designed in the 40s because Leo Fender started his first amps based off the RCA catalog or specs and stuff. So, and those were all 40s schematics.
Right.
You know, and most of his stuff, you know, was all in the 50s. So, and then you had Marshall by the early 60s copying the 50s Fender stuff, and you know, and then everybody started copying Marshall. So
the only thing that I think the old amplifiers really suffered from is that in comparison to new amplifiers, is that the new guys are grounded much better. You know, most of them have the tri-plugs on it.
Transformers.
Right.
Yeah.
But you also had different tubes, and I don't know, people argue over that, like, you know, are you starving the output transformer? Are you this? Well, does that add to it? It depends on what you want, I guess. You know, how clean you want the output stage and how you want the preamp stage to break up, or how warm or how bright. And of course, you know, it's not just tubes. You got all your caps and resistors, and it's pretty complicated, really. But then you just plug into
I remember my dad. I came home from a gig one night and he's like, "Wow, you look rough." And I said, "Yeah, you know, we did a 100-minute set tonight because I was only doing one set, multi-band gig." And he says, 100-minute set? I said, yeah. He goes, we never did those. I said, oh, really? He says, do you know why most bands play a 45-minute set with a 15-minute break all night? I said, no. He said, because after about 40 minutes, you'd be playing and the whole band would start getting quieter as the power tubes were pushing too hard and the transformer would start to overheat. So you would have to then put your amp into standby, let it rest for 15, 20 minutes to get another 45 minutes out of it before it would start getting quiet again.
I was looking in the comments and somebody was saying about the different hertz and such, but I think, there's the idea of odd and even harmonics, but I think a lot of that stuff gets pretty bizarre because, you get into MOSFET and all that. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I've heard some really rotten sounding tube amps. I've heard some great sounding solid state. But I somehow think that overall, I still like the sound of tubes, of a good sounding tube amp. But then I'll just go say this, that what I thought sounded horrible years ago, then I go and listen to years later and you go, hey, wow, I didn't realize that kind of weird breakup does sound kind of cool. It just didn't sound like Black Sabbath,
Right.
Maybe now it is okay. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, that too, Michael B. That too. Yeah, he said, wow, that's interesting. I thought it was the P for set lengths. Yeah.
And sometimes too, you can get so lost on the being a technophobe with it that you actually wind up paralyzing yourself for, to try and decide what you like. If you get hung up on the numbers, and instead of the sound.
Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of people talk about chasing tone and how they find it a negative. To me, actually, I mean, just for me, I find it to be helpful because, like say I'll plug through one amp and I'll say, this amp, this is giving me the sound I want. This is definitely it. And then I'll plug into another amp, go, that doesn't quite cut it, but I don't know. Wonder what this blues driver will do in front of it. And I go, yeah, that's kind of it, but I don't like that kind of distortion. You can kind of hear it. Like it's not quite cutting it. It's like, so I run a preamp in front of that or an EQ and push it harder in the front end. And I go like, oh, wow, that's really close. And I think, I think it almost sounds as good as that other amp I was getting a great sound out of. And then I go back and plug into the other amp. I say, wow, the new sound I got actually sounds better than that. And, and to me, it keeps me hunting and looking.
Yeah.
And not that I have got there because there's so much I don't really understand or get. But as I'm playing with this stuff, I think I learn more. And to me, it helps me find sounds that are at least more useful within a certain style of music. So as long as you're not spending a lot of money and you're just playing around with stuff with what you have, I think to me, I find it as a learning experience.
Maybe that's one of the things that hurts us as players too, because if you stop and think about it, as it was just stated, it seems like what you like today isn't necessarily what you like tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And then the day after that, you might be right back to what you thought originally. So,
but isn't that kind of the fun of it?
We started covering one song and I needed a really heavy tone for it. And I went, piece of cake. I used to play in a metal band. I'll just use my tone from that band. So I grabbed the pedal that I used to use with my old band. Do you think I could dial that in after 2 years and find my own old tone?
Nah.
Nope.
Forget it.
And maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going through old photographs of my pedal board, trying to zoom in to read what the dial said. And I'm like, okay. But then I realized, well, I've changed amps. I've done, and that was enough. That even though, my Fender Blues Deluxe is a clean pedal platform, it still has inherent different tone stack than the half stack I used to play with, which was solid state. No matter what you adjust the dials to, you can't get those two amps to sound the same.
Mm.
Plus, I think that's absolutely correct. I understand, but I do wonder at times, and gosh, I'm going to go into the tone width argument. No, I'm going to try to avoid that. But sometimes, though, I do wonder if we remember something sounding one way, especially in a band situation. You're playing, and depending on the bottom end and how much the bass is cutting into where you're at and how the drums are tuned and whatever, or a keyboard player, how much you're cutting into your frequencies and such and or not. I wonder if we remember sound slightly different, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like the amount of times you would like. I remember, especially like before I joined the metal band, I would dial in this great heavy tone, and then you show up at band practice and you can't hear yourself because it's all mid scooped, and the basses and the drums are just drowning you out. And then it's like, okay, dial in some mids so you can hear yourself. But then alone, I'm like, that sounds terrible without that bass player underneath you.
Well, that was what hit me too, was with that dumble sound, whatever, you know, and you go, well, what a screwball thing to have the mids way out there. There's no bottom end really. The treble's not ripping your ears out. You don't hear that, you know, but then sitting in a mix, you go, oh, wow, yeah, I guess it does fit, you know, pretty strange.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than me, you know, dialing pedals like at a live gig. I'll come home, plug in my rig, and I'm like, I sounded like that? But then I realized, again, as part of the equation, it worked. It was just, it doesn't sound quite as good solo.
And then again, too, the stuff that you're doing for yourself, if you're running it through a board for a PA system, someone else is diddling with that sound anyhow. So in the long run, the sound that you project out to the audience isn't necessarily what you hear anyhow.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, is it possible that, say, your bedroom sound, you know, you have your 50-watt Marshall head sitting there, 412 or two 412s, whatever, and you dial in, it's like killer sound, right? I wonder, though, and it's going to sound bizarre, but suppose you were playing with a bass player that was carrying more way down on the bottom, and he wasn't really walking into your frequency range quite so much, or playing notes that high. Is it possible that killer bedroom distortion might work a little better than it would, say, in your average band where the bass player wasn't working on trying to stay out of your frequencies? I don't know. Right. I mean, I realize they're going to cross over somewhere anyhow.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, because it does. It depends on your bandmates, because everybody finds their frequency range or spot, you know, like especially a band with two guitar players, you know. When Rich would come home and he'd buy a pedal, he's like, hey, I bought one of these. I'm like, I got the same pedal. Now we're going to sound identical because we're both playing through Fender amps. And, you know, I'm like, but even then he'll dial in, you know, even if it's simply a tone knob, he might have his at 1 o'clock and I have mine at 2 o'clock. And that makes enough of a difference.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of last night. Just to interject for a second. Last night, the second band sounded great, but you just brought up the exact same point of what I forgot. The one thing that both me and my friend both felt about the second band was that while their songs were solid, the people that were playing were pretty solid, the inherent biggest problem was everything sounded the same. Right. There was no distinguishing the bass from the two guitars or the drum. It almost sounded like it was all mudded in together. There was no definition.
Yeah. Sure. Brad Miller asks, random question, what is that on the shelf over your right shoulder? Looks like a radio test set. I assume this right here, that is a 2-channel, possibly 4, but I think 2-channel tube-powered mixer that came out of an old radio station from the 40s or 50s. That's the thing you talk to the aliens on, isn't it? Yeah, actually, it was for the radio station for the military base in town. That's what it came out of. The old the base used to have a radio station on there, and my dad picked it up around the late 70s, early 80s. And don't feel bad for asking, Brad. I've had a few questions on that because people are like, what is that? What is that thing? My band needs a new mixer. Really, really bad, okay?
You're listening to KVCH Military Radio.
The big sound in a big town.
Just wondering, like, as far as amplifiers, what would any of you guys like have an interest in, say, like a 5-watt amp that you could get Dumble type, like a tube amp? And I realize, you know, modern solid state and modeling and good solid state and whatsoever, you know, can sound great, but say just like a 5-watt tube amp that you know, with like 1.6V6 or EL84, something like that, and maybe the ability to go from like a Dumble kind of sound to like a Marshall-y kind of sound, maybe 2 preamps built into it. Like, would you find it useful or something that you would buy? Or
I've looked at 5 waters before.
Yeah, I would be interested as long as I'm at the point, though, I only buy anything I can gig with. You know, as long as it would put out enough volume for me to gig with, I don't care what it is. You know?
Yeah, it's not gonna. I mean, it's kind of that's sort of a debatable thing because I mean, you would have to rely on the PA and monitors to have a lot of volume.
Yeah, and
whether you have a line out or you're micing it up, whatever. I mean, it would be more of a studio kind of thing that you could. That's kind of a weird deal. Like I know I've played using a Champ in front of at least hundreds of people, mic'd up. Yeah, everybody has a different idea on that. What you need. Yeah. But I was just kind of thinking of for the studio guy that with a power attenuator and such in it, something so you could turn down after the output stage, and.
Oh yeah, especially in a recording environment, like the days when you would go into a studio and they'd have a dozen amp heads for you to even use that were just house amps, even for that exact reason.
Right.
You mentioned
you could go up with your rig, and for some reason you can't quite dial in the tone. They're like, well, here, try this head, see if that works for you. And you're like, yes, that's the sound, right?
When you mentioned Champs, supposedly Clapton was famous for using those Fender Champs. What was it? 461 Ocean Boulevard. Was that the name of that album? I think he did with it.
I hate even thinking of that, man. I feel real bad because I had a Tweed Champ like years ago, and I remember I thought, what a goofy little amp, and somebody offered me money for it, and I left it go. And now I look back and I go, like, what a moron! Like,
what was I thinking? Well,
it
was my impression that he just turned the thing up as loud as it would go. It would distort, all over the place. And
Joe Walsh used to do that too, right? A Strat into a crank Champ, and that was Funk 49.
Yeah. I have a silver face Champ that I like a lot, and another amp I want to play with. It's an odd amp. It's an old Sano that I think Ampeg might have owned the company or something weird like that, but it has 2 EL84s in it. Now I've been really thinking of doing something with that. I don't know what yet, but it has 3 12AX7s in it, and I think there's a lot I can do with it. And I don't know if I don't electrocute myself.
Yeah, there is that, isn't
there? Vox AC4s for recording, no headroom, but distorted sound can be great. Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We did. I recorded in Rich's old band. Ironically, I joined the band a couple years later, but we're recording a demo with one of his bands. And for a guitar solo, he used my 67 Tele through this right here, this little red abomination, which is a 4-watt, I think a 5-inch speaker, little amp, solid state amp that was probably in the early 70s at a Woolworths used to sell them. So you can imagine the quality of the amp if it was sold at a Woolworths.
Really?
But we just cranked that up, and it sounded okay with the Telecaster through it. But then as soon as we ran it into the recording software and re-EQ'd it, because the bass player is just like, that sounds like crap. We're not using that take. And once all we did was adjust the EQ, and he went, holy crap, that sounds like Keith Richards. Because it was just that breakup, and it was such a unique sound.
I had a Fender Champion 110. I swear if I saw one, I'd probably buy one at the right price. Just because I played some open mic nights. It's the only kind of stuff I normally do anymore, if at all, and not much anymore. But anyhow, I remember playing this one thing, and this guy, he had a couple Mesa Boogies sitting there. This other guy had a Fender, I guess it was Super Reverb, the 410s, whatever. Anyhow, it was cut down with only 2 10s, and he had Hendrix speakers in it, now that I'm thinking about it. And so anyhow, I had my amp sitting on this chair, and I'm sitting there just playing with it and jamming with these guys. And I see this guy go up, and he's sticking his head back behind my amp looking at it. And I'm like, what are you looking for? He goes, where's the tubes? I'm like, it's just it's solid state, And this other guy's going, hey, that sounds better than those boogies, and at the clean channel, it would distort real quick on the clean channel. It really wasn't bad quiet, but it wasn't too hot. But when you went into the distortion channel, it would go way over the edge pretty fast. But if I just brought the preamp up, you know, around 10, 11 o'clock or so, and then just cranked the volume, whatever I needed, usually pretty high, just 110 sitting in that thing, and it sounded great. You guys,
Sure.
how the heck do you answer that, you know?
Yep.
I mean, when people
that's what
coming up and complimenting, when Guy has 2 Mesa Boogies sitting on the stage and he's saying, hey, your amp sounds great, you have to go, huh?
Yeah. I remember for the longest time, I always played with either a 112 combo or a 212 combo, and Richie always played with 10s. Just so we just, you know, and that even just made enough of a difference in our tones too. You know, he's like, oh yeah, 12-inch speakers, that's Ben's territory. I'll stick with 10s. And for the longest time, he was running a half stack with a Marshall 410 cab.
Wow. Yeah, I like those. I was running an old trying to think, it was cream colored brown face Fender Bassman. And I was running that through 2 Marshall 410 cabinets. And man, that thing sounded great, you know.
Oh yeah.
It really did sound good, I think, you know.
Seems like people get a lot of mileage out of basements.
Yeah. Amps.
A lot of mileage.
I remember we rented a studio to do some rehearsals, and you know, especially as us 2 guitar players in the band, we were drooling because the guy on the studio, he's a longtime guitar player. Ironically, not friends with the guys in Anvil, and Rich is like, "There's my stack," and it was a 72 plexi head on a full stack with matching cabs from the same era. He says, "I'm playing through that." I said, "Okay." He goes, "What are you playing through?" I said, 59 Bassman head.
Yeah, they really sounded good. I remember remember those funky custom PAs that had probably like a volume, bass, treble, and reverb. I don't know what the knobs were, but there was like 4 knobs, and you had like 4 channels, like maybe 4 knobs on each channel. Or just, you know,
Right.
they tuck and padded, whatever the heck they're called. But I remember a guy that he'd plug his guitar into it, and he used to say, "Wow, listen to that thing, Power Surge." You know, like, listen to that thing. It's just like, and the light would dim out, and stuff. The blue light would dim out. And what I remembered was cool about it was when it did that, it would be going, and it just sounded horrible, but great. You know, it was blowing up. You know, I mean, it was something you can put it to use.
Sure.
You know, if you want to, and that's kind of what I was saying about amps. It's kind of like when people get into, you know, what's the best amp, you know, this and that. And you see a guy doing something like that with something that's obviously not supposed to be doing.
Right.
But it sounded cool.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. You know, there's a lot of ways to get your tone, per se, right? And like I say, and then if you get into the world of like a Jack White or something, there's no rules, right? Because you could have what we would consider an absolute terrible tone, but he'll make a song based around that singular tone.
Right. Yeah. It's there was something I was playing around with my Music Man where I really don't like the distortion in it. But I kind of found like for playing certain types of blues, there was something kind of cool about it when it had this like garbagey breakup, you know, Yep. I don't even know how to explain that, you know, there was plenty of.
Well, it's like if you're chasing a blues tone, you're right, and you're looking for an old John Lee Hooker tone from his early days. Well, look what he was playing through. He was, you know, he had a Gibson guitar, but probably a junk amp that's breaking up and this and that. And the only way to get that tone is to have that kind of an amp in many ways.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird thing to me is like there's times when in leads particularly where I hear a really pushed output stage and I go, man, I like that. But as soon as I lay into it and want to do some type of hear the bass string ring and snap and boom, you know, maybe the way I'd want to hear a bass. You know, I want my guitar to sound like that though. You know, I want that Chet Atkins kind of boom snap, you know, thing out of it. And I go, nah, ain't gonna cut it, you know. So you can't have everything, I guess. What do you do then?
Apparently, Assistant King says, I think you're describing Tom Morello. Well, there you go. Yeah.
You're listening to Connects with Guitars. Community Hangout live.
Hey,
Well,
Terry's
As
back.
being the only non-Canuck here, guys, I'm going to sign off for this.
Hey, you know,
Nice to have you on, Steve.
It's been really good hanging out with you guys, I got to say.
yeah, that's good talk.
Yeah, man, I'm going to wrap up in a few
That was
minutes here
fun.
anyhow.
All right,
I'm-
guys.
Thanks for jumping in.
You bet. We'll do it again.
Yeah.
For sure.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Steve.
Something I
Steve.
could see happening though, of what I was talking about with you know, that overdrive of the output stage totally saturating and your output tube sagging and the rectifier tube just totally squashing everything. Imagine if you had a pedal on some of the newer modeling amps where you could roll that in when you wanted it, you know, that it would create that totally smashed output stage and then just roll back on the pedal and it would clean up like a twin, you know, or some thereabout. You know?
Yep.
I could see that stuff coming about with time,
Oh, yeah.
or maybe it already is.
Yeah, and we don't even know what the next generation, because there is a next generation of guitar players coming up. It may not be as robust an amount of people, but you know, the amount of young folks I saw, like at Gearfest this year, you know, a huge event, thousands of people, and seeing, you know, fathers and sons, mothers and sons, fathers and daughters, mothers and daughters. It was amazing. And like when Nita Strauss did her clinic, the amount of young people watching, and I went, I'm just happy to see someone under the age of 40 here, you know, let alone kids and teenagers, you know. And I don't know if it's because they're growing up with their, you know, their dads listening to classic rock or whatever, you know, and I don't know if they were like me. I grew up hating country music because that's what my dad played. And then by the age of 30, I'm like, oh man, Waylon Jennings, he's the man, you know, type thing.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, it's a, you know, was the line, when I was 18, I knew everything and my parents knew nothing. And at 20, I knew nothing and my parents knew everything. My God, they got smart in 2 years. You know?
Yeah, but I do remember my mom saying that when I played pedal steel, it sounded like I was killing a cat or something. She hated it, you know. and yeah, like she hated that. They hate both my parents, I think, hated that pedal steel guitar, you know. And the other thing that was weird is I would sit around playing like new age music. There was no such thing as new age music then, just this weird space stuff, you know. And they hated that, and then it became kind of sad, but actually new age became popular then, you know. And I remember my dad got cancer and he was in the hospital. I remember one day he said to me, he said, you know, he said, they're having me listen to this music, you know. And he said, it sounds like that stuff you used to play. I'm like, I felt really bad. I guess it's a compliment, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but if, you know, it's kind of funny, but I probably shouldn't have listened to my parents. If I would have, I mean, in the sense that had I stuck with the pedal steel, I could have been playing in a country band, making some money, or doing studio recordings. Had I stuck with the new age became popular, you know, and I would have been a better finger picker, you know, and maybe.
Yeah. I always had a soft spot for pedal steel players because one, I always thought they sounded awesome. And two, you know, you're using both hands, both feet, and a knee or two. I went, Jesus, you know.
Yeah. The guys that are good are mind blowing to me. And I don't even I haven't had a pedal steel in years. Yeah.
I was lucky. I saw a buddy play, former bass player for the Watchmen, a Canadian band, Ken Tizard. He showed up and he called it pedal steel rock and roll, and he played in a trio, and he put his pedal steel through his full pedal board, and for sound check he did the gospel song "I Saw the Light," but with a tube screamer and a phase 90 on a pedal steel.
Oh man!
Wow.
And, I just about fainted because I was like, this is amazing, like beyond amazing.
Yeah, I remember seeing this guy at a big jam like thing. We used to have his open mic night. It was pretty big, like his biker bar we'd go to. And there was a guy that was like the opening, like the actual band that was playing. And I remember, I forget, I could say where a band was playing that place where they had all the open mics. That's right. Anyhow, they were doing like a lot of Southern rock, that kind of stuff. And this dude had real long hair and big hoop earrings, real wild looking dude. I remember he was playing his pedal steel and he was playing through a Marshall stack. And he picked the pedal steel up and was over. He's getting feedback off his big, heavy pedal steel, holding it against the speaker cabinets, and it was weird. Yeah, they were.
That's awesome.
They were just nuts, man. Yeah, that was a crazy band. Good.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to wrap things up here. We've been going a little over 2 hours. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. So definitely, I'll thank Steve again, even though he dropped out already. Thank you, Terry, for jumping in always. Yep. We'll have Terry back again 1 week from tonight for our monthly roundtable. I want to thank Bruce for jumping in. I knew it was going to be fun, and we'll definitely have to set up a hangout on your channel, too.
I talk too much. I apologize for that. Oh, I get wound up, man.
The more talking you do, the less I have to do.
Yes, the total opposite of what Bruce was saying in one of his videos.
Yeah, what you said in the promo video, you were just going to hit go live and let me talk away. Well, guess what I did tonight, buddy?
I get stuck on motorcycles. I'm freaking lost, you know, and stuff like that. You know, sorry.
Even better is if you have more than one person on, because they can just talk to each other and you can just sit back all together.
Oh, it's cool listening to that guy Hunter talk about his Ninja and stuff and bikes he liked and things. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. It's quite all right, Jamal. Next time we'll have to get you on for sure.
Yeah.
And my sister says, I hope everyone has a great week. Sorry I won't be in the chat tomorrow. Bankers got a bank. Yes. So I want to say tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, we have Caleb Rappaport coming on from the band Nerd Halen. Always fun having Caleb on. 1 week from tonight, like I said, is the monthly roundtable. And 1 week from tomorrow at, I believe 3 p.m. again, we have Mike Bradley coming on out of the UK. I was able to confirm that today. I've got a bunch of other feelers out there for some cool people coming on. And definitely, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and ring that bell so you get notified whenever I put up some content. And I got to figure out what I'm going to do next for my video and my list of my gear. I don't know which guitar will get done next. Maybe an amp, maybe a pedal. We'll see. And as I always say, hold those doors open, do good things, and good things will happen to you because karma is real. And check out the links down below. There's a bunch of links to some cool channels down there. I'll add Bruce and Steve's channels down there. I think Terry's is already down there. And there's some link. If you want to help with the channel, we got a GoFundMe for NAMM, among other things, if you want to do that. And some merch, too, with the new design.
Yeah, I think that's all of it. Trainwreck is actually posted in the side chat.
Is this the end of the hangout?
Yeah. What's that?
Is this the end of the hangout?
It is, sir.
Oh, okay, because I got to go pee potty.
So there we go. So until next time, folks, cheers, rock on, be good to each other, and